have your attention. I hope you enjoyed the first day of the conference. I think the debates were extremely inspiring and fruitful and thoughtful. And I'm very happy that we can start our second day of the conference with a strong agenda. And I'm very happy and honored that I can welcome here the President of the Slovak Republic, Mr. Andrej Kiska. Please welcome him in the room.
Good morning. Dear distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the last farewell to great European Mr. Arpad Göncz is taking place tomorrow. The first president of Hungary after the fall of the Iron Curtain, who spent his lifetime battling against totalitarian regimes and dictatorships and against divisions in Europe. Let me use the words of the President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, who has rightly said, "Men like Arpad Göncz rarely come along in the history of a nation or even a continent. A true European, a man who lived by the strength of his moral convictions and remains to these days a source of inspiration." Ladies and gentlemen, in the memory of the Honorable Arpad Göncz, a true and devoted European, I would like you to join me for a minute of silence. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, you are here all to speak about Europe. Yesterday I made a small shock to organizers of this event because I called at night that I lost my voice and I would not come. So I don't know which kind of energy they send me, but I am glad to be here and to speak by myself. It's my honor. If we want to, or you want to, or we together want to speak about Europe, we want to exchange views, how we are doing and where we want to go. And the subtitle of this conference ambitiously states that we should discuss how to shape the future of the Europe. I have to say that at this time is not the question of how to shape the future of Europe that is being widely asked. Too often we hear a different question: how to save Europe and whether there is enough political will to do it. What we see these days is the return of political rhetoric which divides Europe into the West and the East, into the old and the new member states. And I am truly concerned about this rebirth of outclassed divisions in Europe. Because words always reflect the will. Words reflect the way of thinking. Words mobilize. And words also signal decisions and processes as their follow-up. Dangerous spirit of this language and revival of the ghost of the past cannot be underestimated. We need to ask, what has caused this dividing rhetoric to reappear? In Europe today, we struggle with many problems of a critical nature. Crisis has become a daily routine. Extraordinary meetings of heads of states and governments become somewhat ordinary. Greek financial crisis, Russian aggression towards Ukraine and previously toward Georgia. And certainly migrant and refugee crisis, which is widely labeled as the biggest crisis of our time, even the most serious one since the end of the Second World War. And frankly speaking, the whole picture we are delivering not just to our own citizens, but also to the rest of the world. From the threat of losing comfortable, unrestricted Schengen traveling, warnings have sadly picked to fears that crisis will bring about nothing less than a collapse of the European social order and speed up the dissolution of our European project. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not underestimate the scope of this crisis. It really is some serious challenge. Humanitarian, security, economic, certainly also moral. It goes without saying that it cannot be handled by one or two countries. I do not underestimate the fact that we are unable to control the Schengen borders and the borders of European Union. This is a serious problem for Europe. I do not underestimate that we are unable to distinguish more effectively between migrants deserving, really deserving, international protection and the ones which only exploit the situation and come for other reasons. This is a serious challenge for Europe, in particular for several countries. But the question, as it comes up today, is whether 1 million or 2 million of migrants, many of them getting away from war, violence, and misery, could really bring the end of the European Union as we know it. We are talking about the wealthiest part of the world, with population of more than 500 million people, with ambition of a world leader or even an economic and political superpower. How do we compare to other regions or countries which shelter millions of refugees for many years? Jordan, Turkey, Lebanon, a country of less than 5 million people, which provides refuge to more than 1 million Syrian refugees. If we are unable to handle this situation, what a message does this panic tell the world about us? Should our citizens, and also the whole world, think that our project has been built only for good sunny days? And instead of acting together when we are confronted with problems, selfish, in many cases politically short-sighted, national politics prevails? Do we really feel or think that whatever problems or challenge arises, we can solve it better and more efficiently individually? Or simply by cherry-picking here and there in what kind of situation it suits us to be Europeans, and when we can pretend otherwise? I am convinced that if, as some say, the very existence of the European Union is truly at stake, then we have a serious problem. And we have to get back to fundamentals, to the idea of Europe whole and free, based on humanity, solidarity, for states and nations across the united continent. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe in Europe of solidarity, responsibility, and humanity. I believe in its capacity to overcome this and other crises. The solution is certainly not in divisions. We need Europe that is united, because the strong and successful European Union is in finding solutions together. But we also need Europe, which is ready to take action, promptly and jointly. Through enlargement of the European Union, the countries of the East, of the former Soviet bloc, joined the West. We all worked hard for many years to overcome previous divisions. It took a great deal of political capital, huge effort to succeed in difficult reforms, together with a lot of resources to enable this integration on both sides of the destroyed Iron Curtain. All this aimed to achieve what was called Europe whole and free. And this principle of Europe whole and free must be essential also for us in our region called Central Europe. Let's please not forget about our moving and dangerous past. Thanks to reunification of Europe, potentially unstable region was pulled back to the West. And I am convinced that the founders of Visegrad cooperation had this in their mind too, while firmly believing that we will never allow dark past of divisions to return. It would be very unfortunate to forget about this European keystone of our regional development and cooperation. It would be unwise to abandon this vital and maybe the single most important force behind Visegrad 4 success. It would be against our strategic interest, against our common sense, to turn Central Europe into some troublemaking bloc inside the EU, allied by trivial, selfish, and short-sighted, blame it on Brussels political agenda. That holds true for Slovakia itself. Strategical political course to establish our country firmly in the core of European integration has never been put into question, neither by governments nor by major political parties or majority of our citizens. But it has to be proven, especially in times of crisis. But both around the table in Brussels and at home, because the strong and successful European Union is our major national interest. We have all to lose if uncertainty prevails and pessimistic predictions are to happen. And this risk will remain present in case policies in individual countries will start to be guided by a principle of every man for himself. Because the idea of the Europe whole and free, needs a common effort. It cannot be cherished only on individual basis. Ladies and gentlemen, in few months, Slovakia will take over, for the first time in its history, the 6 months EU presidency. As I said in my recent address to the Slovak Parliament, we have a chance to convince our partners that Slovakia's heart is sincerely on the side of common Europe and that our character is an important contribution to it. Thank you very much.